fact that we all are going to die someday, but when we do, it is up to each individual to choose what they'd like to do with their bodies. Some are going to choose to be buried, others are going to choose to be cremated, but some of us are going to choose to become human cadavers. Human cadavers, also known as the dissection of the human body, has been an essential part of the history of anatomical science since the 3rd century BC. It all began with two radical physicians who went against the social norms of the time and dissected a human body just to learn more about the general human anatomy, which that led to many scientific discoveries and breakthroughs, and eventually human cadavers became a staple in our medical education and professions that we have today. It all began with Herophilus and Stratus, who are also known as the pioneers of human anatomy. Before the two men, there was very minimal exploration done with the human body because it was, at the time, it was seen as ethically wrong to do any procedure that required the opening of the body, because it was believed that the soul remained inside the body after a person died. It was Herophilus who had a mentor named Praxagoras of Kos, who claimed that the pulse had nothing to do with the heart, but it was Herophilus who contradicted this and proved it to be wrong. In addition to that discovery, he also named the parts of our eye and our reproductive system, and he differentiated nerves from tendons and blood vessels. And that was according to Gosh 2015. Stratus also made many essential discoveries for anatomical science, including the discovery that we had 4 ventricles in our brain, and that the spasms of the cerebrum is what controlled our entire nervous system. And that was according to Pierce 2013. But between the two men, there was many essential discoveries about the human body that started. But after the two men died, the discovery and exploration of the human body came to a complete halt. Now that we understand how human dissections began, let's look at how they evolved after the disappearance. So, for over 1,700 years, it was seen as blasphemy to do any kind of dissections of the human body. But it started coming back into society during the 14th century, when in Bologna, Italy, there was a university that started using human cadavers as a learning tool. And throughout the 14th century, it became more generally accepted by the public and by the church. And there was a Roman Empire named Frederick II who made a decree in 1231 stating that once every 5 years it was mandatory that a human body be dissected. And that was Persuade, published in 1984. When people began dissecting human bodies, again, they would gather their bodies through illegal means. They would rob existing graves, they would body snatch, and even go to the extent of murdering. Not only was this illegal, but it created a stigma that still lingers about human cadavers today. Eventually, they legalized the use of unclaimed bodies, which generally were those who lived in poverty, and it was also used as a form of capital punishment for criminals. But today we use a completely legal process where people donate their bodies to science. These bodies that are donated to science are used in a very wide variety, but the most common and vital one is for students and scholars to have that hands-on learning experience. It is a way more accurate learning tool than a computer screen or even a dummy could give them, because the dummies and computer screens are going to give what is seen as a perfect human body. But human cadavers are going to prepare them for the diversification that every human body is going to have. So it'll give them a wide range of bodies to explore and navigate. But in addition to being an essential part of a student's education, it is also used after they graduate and are engaged in their professional career. An example of this is surgeons. Surgeons use human cadavers in many ways. But an example of this is a group used 6 human cadavers perforator flaps, and they discovered a new technique to disperse blood vessels, or blood cells. And that was by Dazi 2016. Surgeons are able to use these human cadavers to practice their often very intricate procedures and practice on a human body that won't feel the pains or effects that if they make mistakes, they can observe them and the human body won't feel those mistakes. And there is a quote here by McCall of 2016. It says, "Cadavers lead all sorts of interesting lives. They allow doctors to practice on patients without them feeling pain. They help surgeons develop new procedures without risking lives, and dentists to dissect heads and torsos." And so they have many, many uses outside even the education. But looking back over the history of our human cadavers, we see that they have been an essential learning tool since all the way back in the 3rd BC. It began with the 2 radical physicians and who made so many important discoveries throughout their time. And we saw that they disappeared and reappeared throughout the 14th century and all the way up to today, where we see that they are used as an essential part